To the Together podcast. We are your hosts, Mike Elliott and Courtney Wren, where we love to go into the depths of conscious partnership, which we call sacred relationship, and conscious parenting. Today, we're excited to be in the studio right now in our new format. It has been a journey for those of you that are watching the video. We now have multi-camera setup and just new atmosphere, new visual aspect to the podcast that we've been doing for quite a while now. And so thank you for tuning in once again. And if you're watching this in the video format, I hope you enjoy it. I know for me, I'm feeling so excited for this because now I get to look at you again. Because when we decided to do the video portion of the podcast, the way we were doing it was sitting on that couch over there with our laptop in front of us and just using Zoom and recording it, sitting side by side, which was sweet to have the side by side piece. But it also, I felt sad because I couldn't look into your eyes anymore.
Yeah, it feels good. Now we get to actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
Like face to face, body to body. Yeah. All of our intricacies in our bodies and nervous systems get to respond to one another. Yeah. Thank you for being so skillful and executing. It's been really sexy watching Mike execute this vision and bring it into creation and all the little pieces of the studio. And it really fits with the theme that we're working on today, because I'm grateful for our differences, because I would never put the energy in, have the skill to want to dive into that. And yet you having this gift of detail and creation and researching and all the gadgets, it's bringing a gift so that I get to show up in what I am good at and what I am meant to offer. And thank you for bringing that to our relationship.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks for acknowledging it.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours to get here.
Yeah. I just would have been like, whatever, I'm just going to do it on Zoom.
Yeah.
Or I'll find a really beautiful partner who can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to go into the differences, but it just feels so important at these big transitional places, especially because we're in this theme of sacred relationship. So much appreciation for the time that we're in and for everyone who just puts out all of their hard work and effort. The amount of YouTube videos I had to watch to make this all happen.
Right.
And an app that we're using right now, which is what switches Courtney and I over on the cameras, you know, directly speaking to the developer of the app and friends and people in their zone of genius answering my questions. Like, oh my God, we're so supported. And every one of those layers of support is the reason for this. And it just feels so important to acknowledge that, like, oh my God, wouldn't have been possible 20 years ago, you know? Yeah, it's cool. Okay, so today's topic, we wanted to go into
embracing our differences.
And a term that really comes up for me when we talk about differences, yan and teen, and it's complementary opposites, which I find shows up a lot in a relationship. And it really does kind of highlight the difference, the difference that shows up in a relationship. And it showed up even today, you know, walk in the studio and this is the first time running this system. So it's like, it's not going to be perfect, but it's just like the first run and we can tweak things. So I'm in here setting up the cameras, changing settings, testing the gear,
very
super
serious.
focused. And then Courtney walks in her flow and is just navigating another part of our business and, just being more. And thank God for the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I notice Courtney's flow helps soften my edges when I'm in the determined focus. So thanks for your flow. I feel like a place we should start is how this can show up in people's relationships. So those that are tuning in and listening, it's, we've seen it in our couples work so often. A lot of what we're guiding is love and compassion and understanding for the different realities, the different worlds, and the differences. So I'd love to hear from you, maybe a welcoming into this, how this can show up in the beginning of relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share like the journey of often how this happens is that we enter into relationship. And at first, when we're getting to know each other, we really notice our similarities. We notice, the things that are resonant. We notice where there might be beautiful symmetry, or, oh, we both enjoy that, or because we're really noticing the places of connection. We're noticing those places of coming together. And that helps us move towards one another, and that's real. And as we continue to journey and time goes on, what happens is that we start to deepen into relationship. We start to get to know each other more. And now the differences start to become more apparent, It's interesting because there's also this interesting phenomena that happens that when we are really noticing our similarities at the beginning, we can also start to have an internal story we make about what that means, So I start to get to know Mike and, oh, so then that means da 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 da. And I make a big story inside of myself and you make a big story inside of yourself about what that means about us, about who we are. But really, we're just touching on the surface of getting to know one another. And then as we deepen into knowing ourselves in a relationship, we deepen in getting to know each other. Now, all of a sudden, the differences start to become more amplified. We become more aware of the differences. And also, as we come into more safety in relationship, we'll be more likely and willing to share where we're different. There has to almost be a level of safety and connection to feel like we can bring our differences in more. Now, often when people start to have that happen, the differences, there can be a lot of trigger. It can be, oh goodness, like what have I done? Like I've married a person who thinks that, or, oh, I'm with someone who does that. I've made a terrible mistake is some of the thoughts that can come up inside, right? You're not at all the person that I thought you were, these sorts of things. And it's important to understand that those similarities are still there. And now we're getting to know the differences and and some of those differences will feel complementary and, more easeful. And then some of them will feel sticky and they'll feel crunchy and they'll feel scary and they can bring up a lot. They can bring up a lot of triggers. Frustration. There can be a lot of fear. There can be, all of a sudden your partner is embodying something. Maybe they have an opinion or the way they do the dishes or, even what they think about the environment. All of a sudden it isn't as resonant to what you think. And maybe that thing is really important to you. Maybe it's like super important to you as a person. And now you're discovering that, your partner doesn't feel that same way or not to that same extent. And the process we have to go through in that of learning how to bring love, learning how to bring acceptance, learning how to soften. And, for Mike and I in our relationship, we have a combo of these where, there's been certain places where there was difference. One I'm thinking of is how I was all about like organic and, the most organic everything and natural everything. And Mike would kind of tease me like, oh, everything's made of bamboo. And, like he would kind of, but then over time, it's interesting.
Most things were made out of bamboo.
And so, and for me, it was so hard because that wasn't as big of a value for him when we met. And then, but then what was interesting is over time, that became more and more of a value for him. And he started to join me in certain ways. But then in other ways, I'd say you're more open and flexible in that place than I am, or maybe more economical.
Well, for sure. Like when I first came over, I'd say that was the biggest value that I was leaning into, is I was going from Alberta to British Columbia, which is labeled bring cash.
Yeah.
And completely different.
I didn't know that.
Albertans call BC bring cash. And so that was a big one for me. I was leaving the matrix. I was leaving my 9 to 5 to go start a business, be an entrepreneur, start a family, and higher taxes. The food's more expensive. Like, it was quite a leap. So
and then I want to buy all the most expensive everything.
Which I've learned to appreciate, and where it shows up for me is like all this gear we're using. I like the most expensive gear and lights and cameras and the things, but yours is more the food and the clothing and the
experiences. And so the point is, there were certain places where Mike joined me in some of that. Like now he goes and he wants organic meat and he wants the best meat. Like there's places where he shifted as he came to learn more about that and was like, yeah, I only want to drink water from a stream, like these things shifted. But then in other places it didn't, and we're still different, like when I saw the cat litter that you got, I had to breathe deeply.
The natural walnut?
Yeah, because
this is a new one. This is live.
Because it has fragrance, like it's a lavender.
Natural oils.
I know, but actually lavender oil isn't good for cats.
Why would they make a natural product?
I know, that's the question. But anyways, the point is, I had to breathe a little bit because it's not the most organic, natural thing, But then what I did is I breathed. And then I was like, oh, it's really beautiful how Mike really wants to take over that piece and figure out a way how to meet all of our needs economically. And that he's really doing the work to like, where can he find the thing that is the most natural, that does meet our cat's needs and meet our family's needs. And so then I softened into the appreciation. Are you having something come up?
Just breathing like it is natural.
I know.
It does align with the...
I know, see, but it's not quite the natural I value.
So this is where my head's at. What I'm breathing through is like, okay, so we would naturally like to smell more cat piss and cat shit in the entryway than a natural oil that is natural that we have in our house anyways. And it's crushed walnuts.
I know we have a different understanding.
Yeah, and this is a good point. Like, this is it live, is there's so many places where our realities are different. The way we see it's different. What we value more is different. And it's a journey of like, okay, yeah, that's how you see it. Interesting. That's so different than how I see it. Or, where I can find sticky places is, well, I feel like I'm seeing it your way, and I feel like I'm meeting that place, but you're not seeing that I'm meeting. Like that can be a sticky place too.
Totally.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That actually is an archetype, though. I've been in therapy with men processing about the women that they're with, and they're like, "Oh, I went to the grocery store and I got the most natural cheese or whatever, and then I came home and she looked at the label and she's like, we can't eat this. It's got da 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 in it." And I'm like, totally. So funny.
I think David Data comes up into my head here, and he speaks about it in this way: is often, and this is somewhat related, where the masculine will come home with some huge business deal, or was really hearing what was talked about the natural product, and then comes home with the thing so proud of himself. And the feminine will be like, well, this isn't natural. And well, I don't care about your big $1 million business deal. Did you bring home the milk?
Yeah.
Gives these examples of like the feminine will kind of come in to like really check, like, are you still here with me? Are you safe? Can you hold this?
Yeah.
And the reason I'm sharing that too is like that's the differences of how we think we're going to be received, what we think we're offering. Like this has been a big one in our journey. This has been a big one with all the couples we support, is in our minds. It can we really project like this is definitely what's true.
Yes.
And this is how they're going to feel. This is exactly what they said they wanted, all the things. And then it's like, whoa, that was not received how I imagined. And this is part of the sacred dance of how do we embrace and love and accept or navigate those places, the places where there are differences, different opinions, you know, shifting from this old paradigm of having to be right to make space for, I want to get to know and understand my partner in the difference. Like, oh, help me understand your world. We don't have to meet it, match it, but then make space for it so that it's welcome.
Yeah, and that so requires, right, first of all, a capacity to breathe, slow down, and then like what you just said, curiosity. Really requires that curiosity. And I want to name part of what is so triggering about this place of difference. And really, if we zoom out and we look at what humanity is working on in general, you know, as a collective, it is this place of how do we allow difference? And humans are getting triggered about that all over the place in so many ways because we don't know how to be connected and make space for difference. But if we kind of go inside to what's happening in our neural circuitry, is that any place where we didn't experience growing up that we could be different from our mom and dad, or different from our teacher, different from our grandma, different from our grandpa, you know, where we could be different and still connected, that gets stuck inside as this charge of but this is me, this is who I am. Because when we look at toddlers, their whole journey is this journey of, rah, this is who I am. I want this. I want it like that. And it's a lot for parents, for community, for people to hold that and keep being curious. What is it they're saying? What is it they're expressing? What is it they're needing? What are they getting to know about who they are? And so if there's places in there in our journey where when we really became different from our parents and they weren't able to love us in it, and now I don't mean do whatever we want, you know, it's not like we're doing whatever the toddler wants, but to appreciate it about them, to love it about them, to love what you're learning about them, then that gets stuck. And now we've got this little toddler inside of us, this little child inside of us that is still on that mountain of like, this is who I am and I need someone to see this. Or the fear of, oh, if we're different, we can't be. Like that's not allowed. And so then the charge inside is, well, one of us then has to be wrong. One of us will have to shut down. And that's what's the charge inside, is a fear of, oh no, difference. I'm going to have to shut down. You're going to have to shut down. And what we're bringing in and what we're inviting is the opportunity in relationship is to heal that place, to heal those places, because the healing work is, you can be different from me, you can be the same as me, and we can still love each other and be connected. And that's actually a good parent message, a message, an energy that children need to feel from their parents when they're growing up is that message. You can be the same as me, you can be different than me, and I'll still love you. But again, that can be a tricky one for parents to hold for little ones, because if you didn't have that held for you as a child, then that's going to get triggered in you when your child suddenly is different than you and wants something different, and they don't want it like that, and they want it like this. And this dance of how do we find our way together? You know, how do we find our way together? How can both of these differences be here and we can still be connected? And Mike and I, we have so many differences. We're so different. Any of you nerds that know about the gene keys, not that you have to, we'll just drop this. We're actually orbital chemistry. And so it's one of the most opposite chemistries you can have, where you're just very, very different. You're actually in different orbits and you're orbiting opposite to each other. And so Mike and I get to navigate this a lot because he really embodies the like earth structure, practical, super beautiful, like spiritual, beautiful energy, connected above, but very earthy. You're the ox, right? He's like,
and Aries.
So there's a strong strength, grounded, practical structure. And I am watery, mystical, flowy, lightness, more connected with the big picture of things,
the etheric
realm, the underlying meaning of it all, and relational. Like the relational is above all else for me.
Yeah, and that's the big one.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
And so you can see when you put Mike and I together, it's super potent and powerful because he is able to ground and put into action the stability and the roots of what's needed for my mystical, flowy self to create, to manifest, to have a structured life, to build a business in a bigger way, in a more impactful way. And I bring to you, what would you say?
Well, definitely soften the edges, because the practicality that I have is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much drive. Like if those are in astrology, you know, when you look at my chart, I have Aries in 4 places. I'm a quad Aries, so there's so much. Think of a ram going down the hill. Once I get my momentum and my focus, it's really hard to slow me down. And so what I find is with Courtney's difference in that flow and the grace and that prioritized relational space, it softens my edges. It soothes my flames. It pulls me back down into feeling, being. Like I learn way more about being, I'd say, with the gifts that you bring. Whereas if it were just my way, and I know this, you know this, is if it's just my way, like when you come back and you've been gone for a week, like everything's got its place, everything's orderly, everything's clean, and I like it that way. But then, like when you come in, that changes and there's flow and there's things start to just be different. And that's helped me be with life more, because life isn't all perfect, organized with the labels on it. Like that's not real life. And so what I've noticed you've helped me do is embrace the muck of life, like that feminine quality of like, yes, it's love and light and we go for this thing, but it's also, and let's be together in this. And like, what's deeper down? How are you feeling? I'm feeling this. And like, guidance into being more attuned and relational is, I'd say, the gift you bring.
And so when we're working together and co-creating, it's so magical. It's so powerful. And as parents, it's so powerful because we are able to bring such a balance, I feel, to how we parent.
Yeah.
And it means we constantly have to embrace difference. We're constantly doing that. We're constantly embracing that each other comes in and does it in a totally different way or brings in something completely different. And for me, what has been so edgy and so challenging and such a good teacher is there's been 2 sort of sticky places of this for us. One is the place where I want gentleness and slowness. and And Mike will perceive that he's slowing down and doing that. And for me, it still feels as if he's moving so fast and everything's so big and so fiery. And he can then feel like
so confused sometimes, because inside of me, I'm like, I've come in from the gym, I've been like grinding at work, and I'm walking in and I'm just being. Like in my version, I'm just being there. Like, wow, she's really looking at me and perceiving me like I'm on fire or something. And I'm like, I'm not even saying words, but my energy is invoking a lot.
It's very big.
It's big.
It's very fiery. It's very alive.
Where I noticed our differences and learned this different, like what you're needing and how big my energy is, even just when I'm not saying anything, is when Cedar was younger and you were putting him to sleep, and I would walk in the room and I'd like,
just happened. That actually just happened like a week ago.
In my reality, I'm like softly opening the door and so slowly walking in. And then it's like this facial expression, like I just came in with a speaker on my shoulder with like a crew of people. I'm like, I don't know how I could do this any gentler. But that's just the difference in energy.
Yeah. And I really I'm very fiery, I'm alive, but I need this kind of feminine, slow, watery space where things are I just let go of everything. I just go into that space. I don't worry about anything practical, and I just go into that, and I need that. And it was so hard for me to get the hang of that just isn't a space you go into. That's just not a space and to just accept over time. It was learning to accept. This was where I had to accept that's not Mike. That's not his energy. He's not going to join you in that space in that way. And I had to go through a grief about that, like a really deep grief about that, because the little girl in me wanted it to be that you were like that too and met me in that, and that would help me feel loved or seen. And in that process, there was a requesting you to be gentler and slower, right, at first. And then over time realizing, whoa, even when he is doing that, it's not meeting me in the way that I'm needing. And realizing, oh, now here is the place for me to love Mike, right? So either I can stay in the place of, well, you're not doing it right. You need to do this. You need to do that, which then now turns from request into criticalness, right? Or I can learn how to accept that this is what's here. This is Mike's energy. This is Courtney's energy. And how can I grieve and let go of the story or the idea of what I thought would be here? And then now how do I meet that need in myself? What does that look like? Okay. And I'm still getting to know that. It's still a terrain I'm getting to know how to make that space for myself, and to understand that the second I come into connection with you, there's going to be a fieriness. There's going to be an aliveness. There's going to be, and this is the other one I was going to name that's a sticky one for us, is he's got a very strong investigator. Do you want to talk about your investigator?
Yeah, those who journey the gene keys in human design, is that the incarnation cross?
Yeah.
I think mine's the point of tension, is the incarnation cross. But anyways, it shows up in my chart as the investigator. That would be the overgeneralized archetype of my day-to-day way of being. And it's so accurate. It's how it shows up is the practical, like if you were to be in our studio right now, you could tell I did a lot of investigating to make this all happen. And like watching all the YouTube videos and checking everything out and making sure the angles and the lights and all these different things, sound qualities, and that's the investigator. So it's like, great, it's got lots of beautiful gifts, but the shadow side of it is I can walk, and this is a regular occurrence, I'll walk into the house and I'm like, who is in the pantry. They moved the garlic salt. It's in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
It's like every little thing. Like I can tell what's been touched, and it's like, maybe some would label that as OCD. I don't know. But it's just that I have this incredible gift to just notice things. And I just, my orientation is to investigate, which is it makes me so good at the work that I do, because I'm investigating the patterns, the imprints. Where is this coming from? And I'm able to see it. But that does make it difficult to be in day-to-day relationship with me, because I'm constantly investigating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And see, what I like about what you just did there, and this is important to know, right? When you're working out your differences in relationship is, Mike, you just did a beautiful job of both naming how that quality in you is beautiful and is a gift, but also how it could be challenging too for another person. And I think that's important. Oh, this is a difference that I have. And oh, I can see how this could be challenging for someone too. But then this is the gift. And that's a gift, you being willing to name that. And for me, yeah, I can accomplish so much in a day. I can have so many magical things happening, so many balls in the air. I can create so much magic and attune with cedar and like have so many interesting connections. And whoa, I just made this epic meal and I managed to create this post for social media and write this and reach out to this person. And I planned this trip we're going to do, this camping trip. And, you know, I'm a mom and I have a little one. And so the home is a mess and trying my best. I'm breathing. And I have this really strong capacity that I've learned to I'm just going to be with what's in front of me. I'm going to let go of all those judgments, self-judgments, just to be in the flow. And then my experience is Mike walks in the room and who did this? Why is this like that? Da, 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 right? This. And I can feel so hurt. It's just like, oh, like my heart just like feels so hurt. And my chest closes and I'm like, oh my God, like, he doesn't see me. He hates me. I don't like, this is what happens inside of me. And none of what I'm bringing is of value. Like this can be the reaction, right? And it's taken a long time for me to soften into, because in that place, I would become critical of you, Mike, right? In my hurt, then I would become critical of your investigator or how you're seeing things.
You're so controlling.
You're so controlling.
These kinds of things.
Yeah. So it's been such a thing to learn how to, for me, it's been learning how to request, hey, I can't receive those things right now. And you'll decide to do it in your inside voice, like inside of you. Hey, I don't have space for that right now. But to also learn how to love him in that, right? Instead of making it bad, like instead of making that bad. But the other part that's been so hard for me, and it's funny too, because we even have a friend who watches Cedar, and I feel like she has this kind of quality too. And it's so hard for me because I feel like in your eyes, what ends up happening is I just look like a mess. You know, like this is my working theory. My projection is I look like a mess. I'm like, you know, not able to hold it together. And then I feel not seen in all the beauty I am creating and where I am putting my energy. But it's so humbling to be like, yeah, I create so much beauty and then there's a mess.
Well,
and I clean up the mess. And I do have a way. I'm not like mess all the time, but there's a lot of creative mess around me.
Yeah, or people clean up the mess for you. Or
people clean
regularly. And that's okay. Like this is not everyone's meant to play all the roles in the kingdom. Like if we were to look at that as the archetype of like, there's a king, there's a queen, there's what's the person in that construct that entertains and goes to the king.
Oh, like the jester.
Is it jester?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the jester. It's like everyone's got I feel like that's a perfect example of like everyone's got their different roles. And thank God everyone has strengths. Like I'm so grateful you have strengths in places that I don't. And I'm so grateful that I've got the strengths that I bring. I really am satisfied by the practical piece, the bringing order to something. Because the contrast of seeing where you're practical in lots of ways, I'll just name that.
I know. I always,
but when it comes
there's
to,
a part of me that's, don't polarize me.
But it will just speak to in the day to day, because I think this is really where a lot of couples struggle. Just as this is our forever spiritual practice and initiation, is welcoming the day to day little nuances. Those
the mess in the kitchen after I cook.
Oh yeah,
whoa,
it's a thing.
It's a whole journey just to map out what did Courtney do in the kitchen.
Even when you're not cooking, you're just in there and there's things in the sink, and it's like, that's okay. So the gift of that is there's flow and ease in, like, this is a really good example of the differences. Is, let's say we're in a really big transition, we're going on a big trip, and I'm starting to get anxious and things, I want everything to be perfect and flow in good order, but it's not. Like, you're the one to come in and be like, hey, and Courtney will walk over and like touch my arm, look into my eyes. Can we just breathe together? Mm-hmm. Hey, everything's good. We're together. It doesn't all have to happen like this. Like, hey, let's just make the best of it. And thank God there's that flow, because that's the byproduct of the flow. Mm-hmm. That's the byproduct. But with every one of the gifts that we carry, there is an impact in the other world that is so different. Mm-hmm. You know, so like the impact in my world is, oh, that means I'm going to have to accept that often when I go to the sink, it's going to be full of plastic containers and dishes, and I have to pull them out to use the sink. That's a byproduct. There's impact there, but that doesn't make you bad or wrong. But there is an impact that is inconvenient. Yeah. And I really like how Stan Tatkin highlights that, you know, what Courtney and I are inviting with this whole brand with Together, these conversations, it's not about building the fantasy perfect life and having our partner meet all of our deepest needs. It's actually learning how to love and embrace and encourage each other to be different, like be uniquely yourself, like keep growing. Like ultimately, I want you to keep growing and changing and being the person that you feel good being. Mm-hmm. And I'll keep doing my work to love and make space for that. Not that it's not like I'm not going to keep making requests, but I want to make space for that. And I want the same back. Mm-hmm. That's my request. Let me keep growing and changing into the man I want to be in this life. Mm-hmm. And I'm so sorry. You know, I think this is an important piece for all of you listening. Part of the healing movement in these places of differences is acknowledgement. Like actually looking into your partner's eyes, reflecting on the places where you do see impact in the difference, and acknowledging, mm-hmm. I see that would be painful, mm-hmm. or that could bring up a lot, or that it would be frustrating, or that in your world it may not make sense. I'm so sorry for that. Do you want to share any feelings about it? And we'll do that often.
I'm still learning to do that one with the mess, because I feel so much like I feel shame. So then I feel defensive.
It's true.
I want to defend because I'm so afraid I won't be seen in all the things I am mastering it. And really, it's because I'm just not very masterful at being practical.
Yeah.
It's just not my zone of genius.
And I think I'm so glad you're saying that. Thanks for being vulnerable there, because this is part of it. This is a perfect example. Is what can create more hurt rippled over time is the place where we get defensive mm-hmm. in the difference, rather than actually acknowledging that is happening. Mm-hmm. That is happening. And I can see in your world that would be hard to be with and to breathe through and to.
And it was such a moment for me when I finally admitted to you, I'm actually trying really hard to be what you're wanting. And I'm realizing I actually am not able to. Like, not only is it, I tried to be what his investigator would like, and I was terrible at it, and I couldn't do it. And I had to just accept, wow, that's not me. And that was such a moment, not because I don't care about you, not because I don't want you to have what you're needing, but just because that's not my makeup. Like, that's just not my strengths. And I'm always going to keep learning how to be a little more practical, a little more considerate with things like that, like to keep that as a learning edge, not to just let that go, but to at the same time have self-compassion of, oh, yeah, that's just not my strong suit.
Yeah, the way that I'd like to speak to that, I'm curious if this resonates for you. But you acknowledging it in that way, I feel, is saying this would lead to me leaving my seat. Like, to try to meet it in the way that would feel good for you would be me so focused on trying to leave where my gifts live that I wouldn't actually get to be me anymore.
Yeah,
is that right?
That's right. That's right.
Because I feel that in me as well, like where there's that place of like, I need you to be more gentle. I need you to be more soft. And I'm like, if I was more gentle and soft, I wouldn't have the capacity to hold all of the responsibilities and like tend all the animals and do all these things out on the land and work on the podcast and do all, like, that's where my drive, that warrior energy, the accomplishment of the day-to-day things is from the fire. It is from the drive. It's from the inspiration, the aspiration. And what comes to mind is Alison Armstrong, the part of the book where she talks about so often what the feminine chooses as a partner isn't going to be the partner that meets all of those sweet things, all of those sweet needs in all the best ways. They choose the partner that's going to help them get the life they want.
Yeah.
And they're different.
Oh, man.
It's so different.
I chose a partner in the past who met all the sweet things, and then it was not the life that I wanted. And that's where Mike was such a learning of, oh, you and I coming together can create something because of our differences, because of our similarities and our differences. And that can bring so much beauty to the world and does have a sweetness. And for me, it's been learning to rest into that sweetness and the joy of getting to keep watching what our differences brings into the world and learning how to love each other in our differences.
Yeah. Which I find is the ultimate awakening. Learning how much, and this is an orientation for you, those of you listening, this is a great way to inquire about it. It's like, how do those gifts and qualities that you see in your partner that might be frustrating or seem inconvenient, how does that quality show up in other areas that makes your life easier and more enjoyable?
And why were you drawn to them in the first place? What kind of magic do they bring because of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And reflect it back.
Reflect it back. And really keep telling yourself inside too.
Yeah. Open that conversation. Like some of the most nourishing conversations we've had is where we take time and energy to reflect back. Like, oh, thank you. Thank you for being so practical. Oh, thank you for bringing your flow and how you're just with cedar and you're able to just be in the grace and acceptance of all the big feelings that are moving. Or when I'm in a sticky place, one of my gene keys is struggle, the shadow of struggle. I struggle. I hit these waves of deep struggle and like, thank you for being so compassionate and accepting for my process and not wanting me to be fixed or change me so that I can just move through it. Like this is the name of the game, learning to talk about, express, and appreciate the differences.
And then just to give you a little map of the steps here inside yourself is, if you feel like there's a difference that your partner has that affects you and impacts you, the first step is to name that and to make a request and to keep doing that, to keep making the request. If over time it's not shifting, it's not changing, then the next step is either you need to learn how to accept it and embrace it and learn about this part of this person, or you need to leave. And so those are the choices. And what we're inviting in the together way is really learning how to be vulnerable and make the requests, because lots of you don't even make the requests, and we all are learning about that. And then the other one is to really allow yourself to move into embracing that difference in the other if you're wanting to journey together. But hanging out in the in-between where you're mad at them for it, not willing to embrace it, but also not wanting to leave, that just creates a lot of hurt and a lot of turmoil, and it's getting in the way of the beautiful creation that can come from your differences.
Or shaming them or criticizing them.
Over and over and over.
That's not love. So what we're naming there, what Courtney's naming there, is true love would let that person go if you can't let those traits go.
Yeah. And we will all have non-negotiables. You know, when we choose to end a relationship, it's often because there is a place of difference that is a non-negotiable for us. It's that difference does mean the ending of a relationship for me. But we really need to get to know ourselves inside to really question that and to know what are the non-negotiables and what are the places that, oh, this is painful. Oh, this brings up a lot. Oh, I need to work on the anger that comes up here. But I love this person. And overall, there's so much goodness that I want to learn how to work with this place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big one.
That's the learning how to love.
Yeah, there's one we're close to the end here, but I just want to name, because it keeps bubbling up. There's one important piece is when we first come together, just circling back to the beginning, is in the beginning, we're so programmed and designed in our bodies to procreate. So there's so many hormonal pieces that almost create the rose-tinted glasses, where we don't really notice, or it doesn't really matter. The differences don't impact us that much. We think they're actually cute. Mm-hmm. But then once the hormones start to shift and change, which, you know, there's been studies that tends to be for most, not for all, around that year and a half, is the hormones of this like pushing together to just procreate and be together and be in that juicy place. After that, it's conscious choice and choosing. Mm-hmm. So this is often where it starts to bubble up and show up. And so, you know, this is what we're talking about.
It's the consciously choosing. And I really feel like in that it can be equally as beautiful as the honeymoon phase. I really think relationship can be. But this is where it's not the hormones doing it for us. It's actual love. It's the practice of love. It's the choosing of love and the cultivating of that space together. And let me tell you the most healing thing, right? Like in that place of shame when I'm like, oh, this is a shameful part of me. And when I watch Mike learning how to love that place, that's healing. And, you know, when I learn how to love Mike in his places and his differences, that's also healing for me, because it expands my capacity for love. It expands my capacity for relationship. And that's the gift of it.
Yeah. And the piece I'd add on top of that, like, thanks for that. And the hormones are a part of it, but it's intentionally choosing the actions that do ignite the hormones, where I'd say in the beginning is they're just free flowing.
Right, I see.
Procreation is just like, let's procreate. And so it's just like a flood of them. But I find now, you know, there is so much juice in our connection, and it's almost more enjoyable because it's deepening this vein of intimacy through learning and cultivating the qualities in myself to be the person to love those things and to embrace and to want to care about the ways that you do feel met and appreciated, and
how to evoke all those juicy sexual hormones and oxytocin and dopamine, because we can still evoke those in each other.
Yeah, by consciously choosing the actions.
Yes.
Yeah. This is where, loving isn't just being and expecting it to be there. This is the journey of showing up and delivering the actions to make it be beautiful. Mm-hmm. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this, accepting and embracing the differences. Mm-hmm. And we're so grateful for you tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, if you got something from it, go down and comment. We'd love to hear. Go on our Instagram, shoot us a DM. Like, what did this bring up for you and how did this show up in your relationship? Did you guys talk about it? Was there conversation about it? We'd love to hear about that. Mm-hmm. And if you enjoyed it, go up, give it a tap that 5-star rating, and we'll see you on the next one. I love you. Hello, you beautiful humans. If you're still listening, you got a lot of value out of this or previous episodes. Our ask is go down to the show notes, give us some love, click on the donation link there. Even if it's just $1, it's going to go a long way. It's going to help us pay our team members so that we can just keep thumping out episodes for you to evolve in your relationships and deepen in love. This is what we're here for. We're going to keep doing it regardless, so there's no pressure. It would just really help us out. In other exciting news, in October, Courtney and I are going to be opening the doors to our Together online community. It's going to be an apprenticeship to deepen in love, to deepen in sacred relationship. And within this community, you're going to be able to curate your entire experience based off of what you're needing. You can come and join the Together community itself, or you can branch off into the additional, Sacred Dudes mentorship, which is for the men, and there's going to be a Holy Mama mentorship that's for the women. You can do just those if you want, or you can do all three. You get to create the experience that you are needing specifically in your life right now. And so if this is something that's hitting you right in the soul, right in your heart, and you feel chills or you're getting some sort of ping that you need to be there, I want you to go down to the show notes, go click on one of our emails, and shoot us a quick little message saying you want to be on the wait list, and we will add you to it.